Back in here on Cody and Gold, 610 Sports Radio, 610sports.com, and the Odyssey app, and be happy to talk to some local companies working together. Chase over at Charlie Hustle, and, of course, friend of the show, Bob Kendrick, over at the Negro League Baseball Museum. Chase, I'll let you go first. I'm having you guys in for a collection that, I got to be honest, very important to me, as we've done a lot of stuff at the Negro League Baseball Museum in the past. What made you guys think to do this huge salute to the Negro Leagues collection that's going to slowly roll out here?
Well, it's actually kind of a passion project for me. 10 years ago, we started a Kickstarter campaign with the Negro League Baseball Museum. Bob was really one of the first humans to believe in me, and we ran a campaign and raised a bunch of money with kind of an 8-piece collection. And so, my whole goal was to tell those stories, tell the stories of lost baseball, and it was something that was important to me growing up. I think I wrote about Jackie Robinson from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
I remember writing a Josh Gibson paper in 7th grade. So
I
might be the same.
I might have even turned in the same paper, but all those stories, it meant something to me, and it was a big piece of our brand early on. So to come back and really do it justice, and there's so many more stories to tell. I mean, it's a whole lost league that people need to know about. And I think, with Bob and this relationship we've built, I know that his big thing is getting young people to understand what the Negro Leagues was all about. And it's up to us to carry that forward. We're doing our part using T-shirt as the canvas.
Bob, when we were talking about this, I couldn't think of a perfect time, especially with Major League Baseball recognizing all the records from the Negro Leagues. Is this kind of a perfect time to talk about some of those stories? We know so much about the Monarchs here, but everyone else.
No, it is absolutely a perfect time, and I'm just so excited, Cody, because I guess the interest in Negro League Baseball is just continuing to soar, and it's due in large part to very creative initiatives like what we've embarked on with Chase and Charlie Hustle that are helping introduce the Negro Leagues to a new generation of young baseball fans and fans of American history.
When you look at some of the stories you wanted to tell, I'm just curious because I'm lucky enough to get a sneak peek of everything that's going to come out slowly as you guys kind of release this. Bob, which one was your favorite one to kind of tell the story of?
It's almost like picking your favorite child. You love them all, but every now and then you like one better than you might like the other, depending on what they're doing. And so this collection across the board is dynamic. I love the Rube Foster pieces. I love the stadium pieces, because we get so many questions asking about where the Negro Leagues played. And so to see the stadium series is also very cool as well. And so, it's been fascinating watching the success of Chase and Charlie Hustle. And as he mentioned, man, when he came to me years ago with his Kickstarter idea and his initial kind of run of teams that he was going to focus on, and we talked about it at that time being what I call nostalgic cool. And that's exactly what has happened. He's brought a level of coolness to a rich history that a lot of people did not know, but now they're getting an opportunity to learn about it, and it's just a lot of fun to see all of this kind of take shape and take off.
Chase, from like a we've done some stuff for the show, like we do the garage sale, and we donate the proceeds, or we have people donate the proceeds to the Negro League Museum. Like, to me, it's like every time we do stuff like this, it's kind of nice because we all just keep throwing into the bucket.
Yeah.
For the Negro League Baseball Museum. Is that part of the appeal when you do collections like this where you're like, hey, we get to just make sure that funding or everyone's always aware, that the Negro League Baseball Museum is always kind of like one of the civic centers of the city?
Absolutely. And I think, I wanted to build a brand that was much bigger than just making T-shirts, bigger than ourselves. And, our purpose here at Charlie Hustle is to evoke happiness. We do that in 3 different ways. We call them the 3 C's, but it's how do we do that with our customer? How do we do that with kind of the internal company culture? But how do we do that in the community? And the Negro League Baseball Museum has always been a big piece of that. Obviously, it's it's well connected with what we do in storytelling and nostalgia and sports. But it's really kind of the epicenter of a special organization in Kansas City that does much. It's much more than baseball, and I think it's important to continue to tell those stories and grow that organization and grow together. And I think that's what we've done, and it's just a lot of fun.
When you had to, did Chase make you do a bunch of work? How much of digging through the archives did you have to do to make sure you found these things?
No, I really didn't have to do a whole lot, and that's the great thing about it is, I stay out of the way of the creative process. They've got such a tremendous team of young talent there at Charlie Hustle, and to me, that's the beauty of it. We want and we encourage creativity as it relates to the Negro Leagues, because when you look at the Negro Leagues and how they played the game, it was an art form. It was creative. It was bold. It was brash, aggressive, daring. So we love when that filters over into the creative process, because for me it is the perfect way to kind of carry out and embody the spirit of the Negro Leagues. But, man, we stay out of the creative process. We let those young creative minds do their thing. And then ultimately, through the aspects of our licensing program, we sign off on it. But that sign-off is really the easiest part of it all. We're just looking at kind of the good housekeeping seal of approval from the museum as it relates to officially licensed product. But the creativity, that's all, through Chase and Charlie Hustle and his outstanding team of talent that's over there.
Bob, I feel like I've heard so many great stories about how certain players and how the players played and all those things. But, part of this is like the stadium series where you're going to highlight the places these players say. What was the atmosphere like in the stadiums? For these types of games, what was that part like?
Oh, as Buck O'Neil would say, you couldn't go to the concession stand because you might miss something that you ain't seen before. And that was that level. So when we think about Negro League Baseball, fellas, sometimes it's lost. They play great fundamentally sound baseball, but you were going to be thoroughly entertained. So when you add great fundamentals with tremendous athleticism, you get something special. And that's what it talked about. Yeah, you couldn't go to the concession stand because you might miss something. And they had you glued to the seats, and you went looking good. You went to see, and you went to be seen. So all of that was part of that aura that made Negro League Baseball so special.
Chase, let people know. So, if you're looking for this new collection, again, Charlie Hustle and the Negro League Baseball Museum working together on an entire series of items, including teams and players and individual stadiums and everything in between. When can people start expecting to see this?
Well, all month long, actually. We have a big campaign going on, so you'll start seeing things pop up here this week and throughout the month. But yeah, all the different stories from not just Monarchs, but all the baseball teams. The Negro National League actually started here in the early 1920s at the YMCA downtown Kansas City, right 18th and Vine, and Rube Foster was the big pioneer of all that. So there's so many different stories to tell. Night baseball, we talk about that with the Monarchs,
yes.
The barnstorming teams,
yes.
And then the lost stadiums that you don't hear about anymore. So again, it was just, I love digging into that, history, those archives. That's what makes it fun. And if there's a story to tell, we can paint the picture.
Bob, Chase, I really appreciate the time. Really looking forward to the collection. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.